Imagine you are a miner deep underground, your drill biting through rock that formed hundreds of millions of years ago, long before dinosaurs walked the earth, long before any creature with hands ever existed, and then your drill stops. Something is in the way. You clear away the dust and debris, and inside a piece of rock that is older than almost anything you can comprehend, you find something that has no right to be there. Something that looks like it was made, not grown, not crystallized, not formed by geological accident, but deliberately, intentionally crafted by intelligent hands. This is not a scene from a science fiction story. It has happened multiple times, in different countries, in different centuries, to different people who had no connection to each other. Today, we are going to look at 5 of the most extraordinary objects ever found inside ancient rock, objects that by every law of history and geology simply should not exist. We are going to look at what they actually are, what science says about them, and why even after all the investigation, some of these mysteries still refuse to be fully explained away. The first object on our list is one of the most famous and most debated artifacts in the entire history of archaeology. It is called the London Hammer, and its story began in 1936 in a small town called London in the state of Texas. A couple named Max and Emma Hahn were walking along the bank of a creek when they noticed a rock with what appeared to be a piece of wood sticking out of it. They brought it home as a curiosity and placed it on a shelf where it sat for nearly a decade. In 1947, their son decided to break the rock open. What he found inside stopped him cold. Embedded within the stone was a hammer, a real, undeniable iron-headed hammer with a wooden handle, the kind of tool a carpenter or miner might use. The rock around it was not loose gravel or soft clay. It was hard, dense sandstone, and the hammer was fused into it completely. When people began examining the artifact in its geological context, the claims that arose were staggering. The rock formation in the area was said to date back to the Cretaceous period, somewhere between 66 and 145 million years ago. If the hammer had truly been encased in that rock since it formed, it would mean that someone made an iron hammer at a time when the most complex life on land was still a reptile. It would mean that everything we know about the history of human civilization is wrong by a factor of millions. The hammer was eventually acquired by Carl Baugh, a creationist researcher who runs a small private museum in Glen Rose, Texas, and he has used it as a centerpiece of his claim that the Earth is far younger than mainstream science says. He has noted that the wooden handle has partially transformed into coal, which he argues indicates extreme age. Analysis of the metal revealed it to be approximately 96% iron with small amounts of chlorine and sulfur, a composition that does not match any known modern industrial alloy. But here is what mainstream geology says, and it is a compelling counterargument. The process by which minerals harden around an object is called concretion. It does not take millions of years. Under the right chemical conditions, a hard mineral crust can form around a foreign object in decades. A hammer dropped into a mineral-rich streambed in the 1800s could be encased in what looks exactly like ancient rock within a century or two. The area around London, Texas, was heavily mined and farmed throughout the 19th century. A lost or discarded tool from that era is a perfectly plausible explanation. The hammer's shape and style are consistent with tools used by American miners and craftsmen in the mid-1800s. Furthermore, no independent scientific institution has ever been permitted to conduct a full radiometric dating study on the hammer's wooden handle or a thorough stratigraphic analysis of the exact rock layer in which it was found. The owner has declined to allow such testing. And so, the London hammer sits in that uncomfortable space between mystery and explanation, a genuine physical object that raises genuine questions, but surrounded by enough unanswered methodology to make a definitive conclusion impossible. What we can say with certainty is this: the hammer is real. The debate about its age is also very real. Everything else is still contested. The second object is arguably the most scientifically significant mysterious artifact ever discovered, and unlike most objects on this list, it has been studied intensively by some of the most respected institutions in the world. In 1901, Greek sponge divers working near the small island of Antikythera, between Crete and mainland Greece, discovered the wreck of an ancient Roman trading vessel on the seafloor at a depth of about 47 meters. The ship had gone down around 70 BCE, and it was carrying a remarkable cargo of bronze statues, glassware, jewelry, and amphoras. Among everything brought up from the wreck was a lump of corroded bronze and wood that no one paid much attention to at first. It looked like a damaged piece of junk, something barely worth cataloging next to the magnificent sculptures. But in May of 1902, an archaeologist named Valerios Stais noticed something unusual. The lump had gears inside it, not decorative patterns, not coincidental shapes, but actual, functional, precisely interlocking bronze gears. What had been pulled out of the sea was a mechanical device of extraordinary complexity, and it would take over a century of scientific work to understand what it actually did. Today we know it as the Antikythera Mechanism, and it is widely regarded as the world's oldest known analog computer. The device is believed to have been constructed sometime between 200 and 100 BCE, making it over 2,000 years old. Through decades of analysis using X-ray tomography, 3D imaging, computational modeling, researchers have determined that the mechanism contained at least 30 interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden case with dials and inscriptions on its exterior. It could track the movements of the sun and moon, predict solar and lunar eclipses, model the irregular orbit of the moon with remarkable accuracy, keep track of the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and possibly display the positions of the 5 planets known to ancient Greek astronomers. Nothing approaching this level of mechanical complexity appears anywhere else in the known historical record for more than 1,000 years after this device was built. The next comparable gear mechanism found in Europe dates to the 14th century CE. That is a gap of over 1,500 years. University College London published a major reconstruction study in 2021 in the journal Scientific Reports that proposed the front display of the mechanism showed a full cosmological model of the universe, as understood by ancient Greeks. Professor Tony Freeth, who led that research, described it as a stunning tour de force of ancient Greek genius. The Antikythera mechanism does not suggest an impossible civilization from millions of years ago. It does something equally unsettling. It proves that the technological sophistication of ancient people was dramatically greater than we assumed, and that vast amounts of knowledge, engineering skill, and scientific understanding can be lost entirely when a civilization collapses. The question the Antikythera mechanism leaves us with is not who made it, because we know it was ancient Greeks. The question it leaves us with is what else did they know that we have not found yet? The third object brings us to South Africa, to mines that delve into some of the oldest rock on the surface of the planet. Since the 1970s, miners working pyrrolite deposits near the town of Ottosdal in the Northwest Province have been finding small spherical objects embedded in the rock around them. These spheres range in diameter from about half a centimeter to 10 centimeters. Many of them are perfectly or near perfectly round. Many have equatorial grooves running around their middles, precise parallel lines that look so regular and so deliberate that they seem impossible to have formed naturally. The rock in which they are found has been dated to approximately 8 to 3, 1 billion years old. Let that number settle in for a moment. 3. 1 billion years ago, the Earth had no complex life, no animals, no plants, no fungi. Single-celled organisms were just beginning to establish themselves in the shallow seas, and yet here are these objects, round and grooved, embedded in rock from that era. They became known as the Klerksdorp Spheres, named after the broader region of their discovery, and they ignited intense controversy. In articles published in the 1980s, claims were made that the spheres had been manufactured by a higher civilization, a pre-flood civilization about which we know virtually nothing. The curator of the Klerksdorp Museum at the time reportedly claimed that one of the spheres rotated on its own axis while sitting inside a sealed, vibration-free display case. Stories circulated that NASA had tested one of the spheres and found its balance so perfect that it exceeded the limits of their measuring equipment. None of these secondary claims have been independently verified. The NASA story in particular has never been confirmed by any record at the California Space Institute, where the test was allegedly conducted. What geologists have confirmed is that the spheres are concretions, natural geological formations created when minerals precipitate around a nucleus inside sedimentary rock. Geologist Bruce Cairncross published an explanation in 2006, noting that the Dominion Group formation where the spheres are found consists of conglomerate layers topped by volcanic lava that was subsequently transformed by heat and pressure into pyrophyllite. In this environment, minerals naturally crystallized into rounded shapes over billions of years. The grooves are explained as the result of fine sediment layers in the ancient lakebed where the minerals settled. The spheres are composed primarily of hematite, wollastonite, goethite, and pyrite, all minerals consistent with natural geological processes. Similar spherical concretions are found at many other sites around the world, including the famous Moki marbles of Utah, which are roughly 2 million years old and formed through a comparable process. Scientists who have physically examined the Klerksdorp spheres do not regard them as manufactured objects, but the visual impression they create is striking enough that the controversy has never fully quieted. They sit in geological collections and private displays, perfectly round, eerily grooved, patient as only something 3 billion years old can be. The fourth object on our list is from Russia, and it has a quality that separates it from most other claimed ancient artifacts. It was reportedly found inside a piece of coal, which means its context is far more difficult to explain away than something found loose in the ground. Coal takes an extremely long time to form. It begins as organic material, usually plant matter, which is buried, compressed, and chemically transformed over millions of years under heat and pressure. Finding anything man-made inside a sealed piece of coal would therefore be a genuine puzzle. In the Donetsk region of Ukraine, which was then part of the Soviet Union, coal miners reportedly discovered what appeared to be a gear-shaped object inside a piece of coal dated to the Carboniferous period, approximately 300 million years ago. Photographs circulated showing a clearly mechanical-looking component embedded in the black rock, with teeth-like projections that resembled the gear of a machine. 300 million years ago, the most complex land animals on Earth were early amphibians and primitive insects. No creature with the anatomical ability to manufacture machinery existed anywhere. If this object were genuinely 300 million years old and genuinely manufactured, it would require a complete rewriting of the history of life on Earth. The story was widely republished in Russian media and spread across the internet, where it became one of the most frequently cited pieces of evidence for ancient technological civilizations. However, the scientific verification of this object has been extremely limited. Independent paleontologists and geologists who have examined photographs and accounts have noted that the object strongly resembles a crinoid stem fossil. Crinoids are marine invertebrates that were extraordinarily abundant during the Carboniferous period and are known to produce circular, segmented fossilized stems that can look remarkably like mechanical gears. The regular spacing, the cylindrical shape, and the central hole of a crinoid stem fossil match the description of the Russian gear object closely. No comprehensive chemical analysis or independent institutional study of the original object has been published in a peer-reviewed journal. The original artifact, if it still exists in the form described, has not been made available for international scientific examination. What remains is a photograph, a story, and a very reasonable natural explanation sitting alongside a very extraordinary alternative possibility. This is perhaps the most honest summary that can be given. The fifth and final object brings us to London, England in 1852, and to an event so strange that it was reported in the prestigious Scientific American magazine the same year it occurred. Workers at a quarry in Dorchester, Massachusetts, were blasting rock with explosives when an explosion sent fragments of Roxbury pudding stone flying in every direction. When the dust cleared, workers found among the rubble 2 pieces of what appeared to be a broken metallic vessel. When the pieces were fitted together, they formed a small bell-shaped container about 4 inches high and about 6 inches wide at the base. The vessel was made of an unidentified metal alloy, described as resembling zinc in color, but with a composition that did not match any known single metal. Most remarkably, its exterior was decorated with 6 inlaid figures of flowers or vines, executed in pure silver. The craftsmanship was sophisticated and clearly intentional. The Roxbury pudding stone in which it was found is a geological formation from the Precambrian or early Paleozoic era, placing it somewhere between 570 and 600 million years old. This was reported in Scientific American on June 5, 1852, with the writer noting that the curiosity would challenge the most learned geologist. The object became known as the Dorchester Pot, and it has been cited ever since as one of the most baffling out-of-place artifacts ever discovered. Expert geologists and archaeologists have universally rejected the idea that the Dorchester Pot is genuinely ancient. The leading explanations are that it was a hoax, planted near the blast zone before the explosion, or that it was a historical artifact from a much more recent period that had been mixed into disturbed ground near the quarry. The construction of canals, roads, and buildings in the Boston area in the early 1800s regularly disturbed and mixed geological strata, making it entirely possible for a relatively modern object to end up surrounded by ancient-looking rock. The intricate silver inlay work is consistent with craftsmanship from the early or middle period of American colonial or pre-colonial Native American metalworking traditions, none of which approach 600 million years in age. No follow-up scientific analysis of the Dorchester Pot has ever been published, and the original object's current location is unknown. It has essentially vanished from the historical record, leaving behind only the 1852 newspaper account, and a mystery that cannot be reopened because the evidence no longer exists to be examined. Stepping back from all 5 of these objects, a pattern emerges that is worth thinking about carefully. In every case, there is something genuinely striking, something that at first glance seems to defy easy explanation. In every case, the most extraordinary interpretation that the object was manufactured by an intelligent civilization operating millions or hundreds of millions of years ago requires not just accepting one surprising fact, but abandoning essentially the entire framework of biology, geology, archaeology, and physics as we understand them, and, in every case, a less dramatic but more evidence-supported explanation exists. Concretions can form around modern objects in decades. Coal seams can contain fossils that look manufactured. Ancient rock can be disturbed and mixed with newer material by blasting, digging, or natural erosion. Hoaxes have been perpetrated throughout human history, and genuine ancient artifacts, like the Antikythera Mechanism, can reveal sophistication we underestimated without requiring us to invent invisible civilizations. But here's the thing that makes these objects genuinely valuable, and it is not what the sensationalists claim. Their value lies in what they force us to ask. How carefully do we actually examine the things we find? How thoroughly do we verify the context before we draw conclusions? How much knowledge from genuinely advanced ancient peoples has been lost to time, to fire, to conquest, to the ordinary passage of centuries? The Antikythera Mechanism is real proof that ancient people were capable of things we did not give them credit for. The Klerksdorp Spheres are real proof that nature produces forms so precise they look artificial. The London Hammer is real proof that objects can be encased in rock-like material far faster than we intuitively assume. None of these proofs require a secret civilization. All of them require us to pay closer attention. We live on a planet that is 5 billion years old. We have explored an almost vanishingly small fraction of its geological record. We have recovered an almost vanishingly small fraction of everything that has ever been made or lost or buried in the course of human history alone. The ground beneath every city contains things no one has found yet. The bedrock beneath every ocean has barely been touched. In that context, the idea that we already know everything that has ever happened on this planet is not science. It is overconfidence. These 5 objects, whatever their true origins turn out to be, are reminders of that. They are the questions the Earth is still asking us, and for every one that gets explained, there will be others waiting in rock that no drill has reached yet.